السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم معانا مع فادك Pharmacy Practice Podcast.
Welcome to FADIC Pharmacy Podcast Network that is focusing on varieties of pharmacist perspectives in different specialties through interviews, talks, and outlooks about pharmacy practice in the past, present, and future. To share in the advance of clinical career and add an impressive image to the pharmacist all around.
إن شاء الله بإذن الله الحلقة النهاردة مميزة جدا جدا، وأهم ما يميزها هو وجود بعض العلامات البارزة فعلا اللي ليها أثر وأثرت علينا في حياتنا، يمكن أثرت عليا أنا كمان شخصيا في حياتي. معانا النهاردة الدكتور روبرت سميث، هنتعلم معاه وهنتعلم كتير عن الكونسبتس بتاعت الليدرشيب وعن الاستراتيجيك بلان وعن المانجمنت. هنتعلم ونشوف الثقافات الثانية وصلت لغاية فين، ناخد منها بعض الكي بوينتس والحاجات المهمة اللي ممكن تساعدنا كتير جدا جدا في الادفانسمنت بتاعت الكارير بتاعنا، وتساعدنا انها تدينا بوش تو جو فورورد. وكل واحد من الصيادله يكون فارماسيست از ليدر، يعني يكون هو بنفسه صيدلي يعرف يقود حياته المهنيه والشخصيه والعمليه، ويقدر فعلا يوصل ان هو يحقق الباشن بتاعه في المهنه بتاعته. هنسعد النهارده كتير جدا جدا مع الدكتور روبرت سميث. ان شاء الله هننطلق معاه دلوقتي في البودكاست، واتمنى فعلا ان انتم تستمتعوا بيها كلكم وتكون فعلا بودكاست مفيده على الجميع. Thank you Dr. Smith for accepting our invitation to be with us today in FADIC podcast. يعني really I appreciate your acceptance to be with us.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
Thank you. The first question I always ask it to all coming with us in the previous episodes is to speak about yourself.
Okay, well, I have always been inspired to hear other people talk about their lives. We've done 2 4-person panels at AACP meetings here in America, where we had 4 leaders each get up and talk about their lives. I moderated those panels, and I was very inspired by the comments that they made about their lives and the reason they made the decisions or moved a certain direction. And I'll try to match some of the thoughts that or approaches that they produced during those platforms. But I think you wanted me to kind of summarize where I am, how I got to where I am today. And at the present time, I'm retired. I only do a few presentations a year, and but I was born in 1943, and we moved to Arizona when I was 6, and went to high school here, and then I went to Arizona State, got married, and to Mary Lou and Smith, Mary Lou Smith, my wife, and then I went to pharmacy school at the University of Southern California. And then I spent 2 years in the United States Public Health Service. And then I got an invitation to teach at a college of pharmacy, and I accepted the invitation and went there for 8 years, and that was at Wayne State University. And then after that, we moved to Omaha, Nebraska, again in America, and we lived there for 11 years. I was a department head, a faculty member, had an opportunity to take a sabbatical, and then I ended up as assistant dean. And then 1989, we moved to St. Louis, where I became the dean of the St. Louis College of Pharmacy. And we lived there for 7 years. When we talk about difficulties, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then after that, I moved to Auburn, Alabama. In between, I did a sabbatical with the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy for a year. And then I moved to Auburn, Alabama at Auburn University. And I was department head there for about 16 years. And then I retired and worked a little bit part-time after that, but I'm completely retired now. So that's kind of the history. We lived in Montana, Michigan, Missouri, and then Alabama. Now we're back home again in Arizona. So that's a brief, I guess, travelogue of where I've been. And we can talk more specifically about some of those experiences as we go through this conversation here today.
It's really amazing, Dr. Smith. Yani all your career and your mission in your life and your professional career. طيب, can I ask you about the most important challenges you have met in your professional life?
Well, I never really looked at them as too much of a challenge, but I did have an adversity happen, and that was when I was dean at the St. Louis College of Pharmacy. The president that hired me was a very empowering individual. He cared about us. He talked to us about our families, our children. Never really told me anything to do, and because of his trust in us, we worked very hard to please him. And while he gave credit for the change we made in the college, I think he made it all one because he demonstrated trust, and because we felt trusted, we didn't want to do anything that would destroy his impressions of us. So we worked as hard as we could. But he left after 5 years, and a new president came, and I was in favor of this new president of all the candidates. And he came in and was kind of almost the opposite. I'm not saying anything negative about him. He just had a different way of doing things, and I never sensed he trusted me. And after about maybe 9 months or so, he changed all of his assistants. Now, there were 4 of us vice presidents: a vice president for academic affairs and dean, and that was the title I had. And then there was a vice president for student affairs, a vice president for finance, and a vice president for development. And he changed us all. And at the time, I really didn't understand. And reflecting back, I think sometimes when you change the head coach, in this sense, in the vernacular or of sports, you change the assistant. And he made me to leave, and so that's when I did sabbatical at the American Association of Colleges. I told him I wouldn't come back if he'd pay my salary for a whole year, and he agreed. So I had a wonderful experience at AACP. I was introduced to the pedagogy of higher education, how do you teach her, and kind of shifted my career in a whole new direction. And so I think sometimes out of adversity, good things happen. New doors open and new opportunities present themselves. And the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy was very nice to me and treated me well, and I really enjoyed my opportunity to be there for a year, after which I then accepted a position at Auburn University. I think also that there are things bigger than career. There's family and course, and then I think those things kind of together during those times when there's uncertainty in other areas, and things usually have a way of working out if you're patient, let things unfold, and the opportunities that come to you. So I look back on all that, and what I wanted to again, perhaps not, but it did, and it worked out well. And good experiences after that. I think the sabbatical expanded my exposure to the pharmacy world. And in 1999, years later, I became president of the American Colleges of Pharmacists. So I don't know if that would have happened otherwise, would have, but I like to think that
after you become the president in 1999. Yeah, after you become the president. Yeah. After you become the president in 1999 and American Association of Consultants Pharmacists, how you deal with others? How could you improve the pharmacy practice when you become the president?
Well, back then, the president had a little influence in the speeches that they gave. I don't think they have so much now, but I was told by a friend of mine who'd been several years before that you only had 20 minutes twice to influence the academy as the president, and that was in your talk. So we have talk we give when we become president, and we have a talk that we give after we've spent the year as president. And I talked about teaching, and I talked about the influence that teachers can have. The first talk I titled "Unleash the Greatness," and I think I titled it that because I sensed that in every student there was greatness. It may be varying degrees, it may be something totally different than another student, but every student has greatness. And our challenge as educators was to unleash that and make them realize how great they were and how they can use that talent or ability to help the profession. And the second talk was titled "A Free Lunch Pays for Itself." And by a free lunch, I meant an act of kindness, a hello, a thank you, a expression of appreciation. All those acts of kindness come back to you in many, many ways that pay for the expression. I mean, you could say, well, if you buy somebody a lunch, they'll buy you a lunch, but that's not the reason you do it. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And then out of that free lunch as a metaphor, it produces kindnesses in return. And then we built upon that. And so I tried to influence the Pharmacy Academy to think about their teaching and realize that they had an influence on the lives of these students, probably greater than they had expected or thought.
Yeah. طيب, as a consultant for personal and professional and academic leadership, what is the difference in your consultation between the three categories? Otherwise, personal leadership, professional leadership, academic leadership. What is the difference between them?
I think when you're a leader, there has to be a character involved. I think the most important attribute in leadership is character. And that is that you're honest and you respect others and you're humble. I think in the book Good to Great, Jim Collins discovered that humility was one of the attributes. Very impressive book. And that basically means that you can subordinate your will to someone else's. And especially when that other person has a better idea than you have. And you give them the credit. You don't have to take the credit for everything. And I think a lot of people in leadership positions think that they're inadequate if they don't come up with all the ideas themselves. And that's not the way it works. Most of the ideas come up from the subordinates and you have to be humble enough to accept their ideas and listen to them and learn from them, and then be able to give the other folks the credit for the ideas and not take that credit yourself. I think in politics, not just in America, but everywhere, the political leaders tend to take credit themselves and rarely ever give any credit to their subordinates. And I think that's very misplaced efforts.
But what is the difference between personal leadership and academic leadership?
Well, I don't know if there is any. I think it's all based on character. And of course, the context is different. You're going to be talking about different issues. But I think the principles are the same. You treat others with respect and honesty and character and you listen and all the things I've just mentioned. I don't know if there is anything, if there is a difference other than the context in which you're leading. I mean, if you're leading Ford Motor Company, then you're worried about selling cars. If you're leading a college of pharmacy, then you're worried about the students learning and the amount of research and the scholarship of your faculty. And so you're worried about other things, but you still have to lead. And I think you have to show them things by example, and they have to know that you trust them. And I mean, Stephen Covey said in one of his presentations that the highest form of human motivation is trust. So if you know you're trusted by the person above you and by those below you, then you can accomplish almost anything you want to do.
Yeah. About strategic planning, the question I was asking you about the strategic planning in the personal and in professional or academic career. How can you build the strategic plan? Yeah.
How do you plan for? I think a certain part of your career just happens. It's serendipity, I guess you'd say the word. And I don't know what the word is in Arabic for that, but I think certain things just happen. And you have to accept that. Somebody calls you on the phone and says that they need a position in at such and such a university, and you say, "Yeah, I'm interested." You go and interview, and you might get the job, you might not. But that just happened. You didn't plan for it. Other things are planned. You might have a long-term goal to be a dean of a college of pharmacy someday, and then you know that it's probably best to be a department head and maybe an associate dean, and to get other experiences before all of that happens. You also know you have to publish papers, you have to develop an academic credential, and so you go about that, and that's the planned part. But the other parts are just serendipity. You might have a family member that gets sick, and you have to stay in one area for a longer period of time than you thought. Your kids are in high school and they're playing in sports and they don't want to move. And that affects how you move about in your career. But I think it's a combination of things that just happen and a combination of a overt effort to plan out your future.
Yeah, okay. What is the main theme you take it throughout your life?
Well, that was a tough one for me. You gave me these questions in advance, and I thought of that one, and I think basically it's just influencing other people for good. When our life is all over, we're not going to be asked. We're not going to be asked how many people did we preside over, or how big of a company, how big of a school of pharmacy, all those things. The hierarchies of life are not going to be important to the person asking us that question. All they're going to say is, how many people did you help? How many people did you do good for in their life? And I think that's the key. How many students did I influence for good over the years? How many other faculty members, younger faculty members, was I able to hire and then influence positively their careers? Those are the questions I think I'm going to be asked, and so I think the main theme for my life was how do I influence others for good?
Yeah, really impressive. So how could you become an influencer for the others? What are you doing to be this?
I think you have to show that you care about them, that you have concern for the things that they're concerned about. You have to get to know them, and they have to know that you want to know them. I think they have to know that you care about them first. As soon as they know you care about them, then they spend more time perhaps being influenced by you. I just remember a faculty member I had back at the University of Southern California, and he played golf with us. He played baseball on the University of Southern California's baseball diamond. We didn't have 18 players. We just played with 3 or 4, and he played there too, and he would eat lunch with us, and he got to know us, and because of that, I just got this great desire to do well in his class. And it was the hardest class I ever had, but it turned out that he had a big influence on my ability to learn. So I think when the students know you care about them, their desire to learn in your class is greater. And I think employees know when you care and trust them, they have a greater desire to do well.
Yeah, really impressive. طيب, what's the main advice or many advices you want to give to the pharmacist, to the future pharmacist, either students or graduated?
Well, I remember a talk by a lady called, her name was Rachel Naomi Remen, R-A-M-E-N. She was a pediatrician to start with, but then she became a psychiatric oncologist. And she wrote 2 books. One was My Grandfather's Blessing, and the other was Kitchen Table Wisdom. And they were both books that had vignettes of her experiences. And one of those stories, she says, her father, who was a pharmacist, she became a physician, but her father was a pharmacist. And he said, Rachel, it's not about the drugs.
She was pharmacist? She was pharmacist, and
No.
after that transitioned
No,
to physician?
Her father was a pharmacist.
Her father, okay.
But her father told her, it's not about the drugs, Rachel. It's about the people. And I think there's a big lesson there. Our concern as pharmacists is about the people first. And then it's the drugs. And so if the people know we care about them, we're concerned about them, we will listen to their problems. We will hear what they have to say and act upon it. Then they'll be more willing to accept our advice about the drugs. So it's about the people. And I tried to teach that to the pharmacy students, that it was the people first. I remember once Michael J. Fox, who is an American actor, but he developed Parkinson's disease. And he wrote a book. And in the beginning of the book, he talks about what it was like to get up in the morning and have Parkinson's disease. And he went through all the experiences of just getting up, going to the bathroom, brushing his teeth, and all the things that were very difficult for him to do now. I don't think the students think about that. All they think about is, I've got to dispense this drug, and the patient's got to take it right. But they don't think about the experiences the patient's going through. And that, I think, is what Rachel Naomi Remen is talking about. It's not about the drugs, it's about the people. And so we need to, as pharmacists, be more concerned about the people and what they're experiencing and what they're going through, and the cares and concerns and hopes and dreams and fears and that they have because they have these diseases and have to take these medications. And that's the part I think we ignore in pharmacy education to some extent. And I tried to teach that. And I don't know how successful I was, but I think that would be the big advice I would give to pharmacists. Look at these individuals who you are giving drugs to as people, with cares, concerns, and hopes and dreams and fears and passions and desires, just like you have, and treat them as such. And I think you'll be a better pharmacist.
How the pharmacist become more advanced or more developed? How can they balance their life between the professional life and scientific life? How could they make this balance? And also personal life.
The question is, are you talking about work-life balance, or are you talking about how do they make this adjustment
the balance between the two main roles of the pharmacist in the life? Either become a student, after he become graduated, he need to continue educate to be advanced and updated in career and personal life. Yeah.
You have to keep up. I mean, you certainly have to be involved in continuing education, and as new drugs come out, you need to learn about those and so forth. But I think you have to also concentrate on the people. You've been to my presentations before, and I've said that love is the foundational principle of life. I think it is in every culture, not just in America, it's everywhere. As I haven't traveled around the world much, but I've been to Saudi Arabia and I've been to Japan, and And people there are just like here. I mean, they have basic needs. They have a.
Is there a difference between the pharmacists in Japan and pharmacists in America and Saudi Arabia?
Well,
is there any difference between them?
There are differences in maybe in what the law allows them to do, but there's no difference in the fact that they're people, and that they're people that have physical needs and spiritual needs and mental needs and social emotional needs. Everybody has the same 4 needs, and as you go around the world, you discover that, and one of those needs is this. And I think they're all supported by the principle of love, and that is respect and humility and honesty and selflessness and all of those elements that you could combine in the definition of what love is, and an action.
Yeah, but in the personality there is no difference, because I heard before that in Japan the pharmacists are hard workers. For this reason, I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, I think they're hard workers everywhere. I think they I don't know much about the pharmacists in Saudi Arabia, because my experience there has only been in a strategic planning experience. But I think the pharmacists there strive to be the best they can. We talk to some clinical pharmacists. We talk to some hospital pharmacists that pretty much all that they do is dispense. We talk to pharmacists that they still make papers. I mean, they still have machines that fold papers and put drugs inside the paper, and then they pour the paper, in the compound that's in the paper, into a solution whenever they administer it. And so they're still doing some things that are peculiar to the culture and the beliefs of the people there. But from a standpoint of being people, I think they're the same. I don't believe that there's a basically the basic principles of life are the same for everybody. And so
Yeah.
I would say that folks in Saudi Arabia and folks in Japan, America, Canada, Mexico, they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, excellent. The next question I'd like to ask you about the books or videos affecting you, or you spoke with me before about the life-changing books, and spoke with me about some innovative books that help to change the mind of pharmacists.
Well, I can tell you some books that changed my mind. I don't know if all pharmacists have read these, but of course, I would probably start with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the book is quite profound, because Stephen didn't come up with these 7 habits. They're kind of, I think they have a universal understanding among all cultures, but he put them in an order in which they seem to make sense. And I just encourage you to read that book. And then the books by the Auburn Institute, Leadership and Self-Deception, Anatomy of Peace, and The Outward Mindset are all excellent books that will change how you see other people. I can promise you that. I'd start out with Leadership and Self-Deception, and then, or you could read Anatomy of Peace first, and they're just the same message, but in a different context, story. And then The Outward Mindset is not a story, but it talks about experiences of various companies and people who have applied the principles that they've talked about, and how they've changed their life. It's changed their companies and so forth. And then, so I would say that those 4 books have been pretty instrumental in my life. They're based on principles, not so much on techniques. And so I think that's an important concept on all those books. I think I mentioned once to you, Rasha, about a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen, and I think that's a book that will
this is amazing. This
have a book that will have an impact too about how you balance your life out. Oftentimes we get so tied up in our work because we get instant gratification from it. If we do something well, somebody tells us. If we publish a paper or if we talk to a patient, we have a patient have a success, we get that instant reward. So oftentimes in our families, the rewards don't come so quick. We may not know our kid is a great success until they're 20. And by then, if we haven't spent the necessary time in developing them and talking to them and being available when learning points are teaching opportunities are available, then we might miss out. And so I think it's very easy to allow work to take precedent over what might be more important things, and that would be your family and your friends. And in that book, he talks about how that's really like operating a business. Your family's a business. How would you operate it so it succeeds? And I think oftentimes we don't.
This is a great concept. Yes, this is a great concept that the family is also considered as a business for others, not only the professional life or the working outside, but the family is also part of our life.
Right. I look back and I can see times when I put work first, and I shouldn't have, and perhaps it has caused some challenges in our family. But that's what you have to do. It's not easy to see the results of a marriage or of the family instantly. Oftentimes, it takes years, and
not quick win for the family.
Yeah.
There's a win, but not quick.
So I would say that How Will Measure Your Life. Other books, I started out back in, I think it was in the early 80s, 1983, 1984. I read In Search of Excellence by Tom Peters. And that was the first book I read where they compared companies and which companies were great and which companies were not. And
Sorry, which book of Tom Peters? What is the name?
In Search of Excellence. But if you read it, you have to read it for principles because a lot of those companies don't exist anymore. So, and you say, well, if they were great, how come they don't exist? And the same with Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Some of those companies don't exist either. So, or if they do, they're much smaller than they were. And they either did not continue to apply the principles or economic challenges occurred. And but I would say that Jim Collins' book, the early books by Tom Peters, and then I've always found that reading history books. I don't, in America, of course, we would probably read American history. And as you read about these folks' lives, and you can do the same thing, I'm sure, in Saudi Arabia, where you read about the lives of great historical individuals in your history, that you'll pick up insights and ideas from their lives that will strengthen your beliefs and cause you to be a better leader. So I think history is very important. So I don't know if there are any videos that affect me. I can't recall any, but those would be the books. And then I think Rachel Naomi Remen's books were very inspiring to me, and I found her little vignettes. I like to read autobiographies because it's like having somebody talk to you about their life. And so whenever you get a chance to read about someone else's life, especially someone in your career or maybe in healthcare, there are a lot of doctors that will write about their experiences. I don't recall all of the books, but in Annals of Internal Medicine, there is almost every 2 weeks it comes out, I think, and there is a little vignette by a physician that talks about a personal experience, and I found several of those to be inspiring too. So I would just read. I think we don't read enough, and we should just read, and then read some more. And you'll, if you read, you'll become a better writer, because the phraseology, the sentences, the words will go into your mind, and then someday, at another time, when you're trying to write something, things will come out that will be better than they would have been otherwise. So I think it's a great advantage to read.
Is there a suitable time for you to read in, or you read anytime?
Well, I think, I don't know, I can read better in the morning or after I've had a nap or something, because my mind seems to be clearer. If I wait till I'm tired, then it doesn't really matter what I read. I might fall asleep, but I think at least for me in the mornings is the best. I can usually read for a longer period of time before I get tired. So, but I think you should read something every day, and that's not related to pharmacy. I think you got a question on here, how pharmacists become great leaders. And I would say that one of the ways that they do that is they have to broaden their experiences. When you go through a pharmacy education, at least 20 years ago, perhaps it's not as bad today, the breadth of your education is not very great. You take the required courses for pre-pharmacy and maybe a few other courses, and then everything in pharmacy school is pharmacy. And so your background in the liberal arts, in history and geography and political science and economics and the English, I guess, well, for Americans it'd be English, but it would be any kind of literature, is probably not as strong as it would be if you were a liberal arts major. And so the breadth of your background isn't very great. And so as you start out as a pharmacist, you become a staff pharmacist, and you might become a supervisor, and then you become a assistant director in a hospital, and then perhaps you're the director, but that's all you are, it's just all pharmacy. And if you want to be the hospital pharmacy director, or if you want to be an assistant hospital pharmacy director responsible for several departments, then you've got to develop a background in more things than just pharmacy. And you have to be able to talk a little bit of economics and political science and history and geography and so forth. And
so
that comes about by reading and reading.
Yeah, great. After you become in a leader position or responsibility, how can you balance between your reading in the pharmacy career and reading from outside the pharmacy career and your responsibilities? How you can balance all these missions?
Well, it has to be a priority. I think sometimes we say, well, we just don't have time for things. Well, I would say that what people should do is list all their priorities on a sheet of paper and then schedule your priorities. You got families a priority. You have to go to work. That's a priority. You have to read for work. You have to read privately, but schedule it. Most people do what they have as their highest priorities. Now, you also have this thing on how do you manage your time? Well, I discovered this. I went to Arizona State University for 3 years, and my grade point average was just average. I mean, I was just an average student. And the main reason was I had too much time. I could always say, I can do this tomorrow. And then tomorrow would come and I could say, I can do this tomorrow. And then by the time I got around for examinations, I had to cram. I had to study real hard, solid for a long period of time in order to just feel confident about the test. But I didn't have a long period of time. I only had a day or perhaps 2 days. And then after the exam, I would forget it, but I never got very good grades. When I was a senior, I I'm not sure how it happened, but I discovered that if I studied everything a little bit every day, I could do better. And that was the first time I got a B average. I went to pharmacy school, I had an A- average, but I worked 40 hours a week while I was going to school. And I was so busy that I didn't have tomorrow. I had to do it today. And I got in the habit of studying things for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and all these little periods of time that I had while I was going to school. And I think it's similar to, let's say, a European or a Saudi Arabia soccer player or football player. In order to be good as a football player, you have to have a lot of repetitions in kicking the ball certain ways, or receiving a pass from another player, dribbling the ball down the field, doing long kicks. You have to do that over and over and over and over and over again. And I think learning is the same way. Learning requires repetitions, not long periods of study. I read once where they did a study on folks who studied in 3-hour blocks the same subject. And they could remember a little bit of what they studied at first and a little bit at the end, but they couldn't remember much in the middle. And I think if you shorten the time period, there's no middle. Plus, you have those constant repetitions of going over and going over and going over and going over. And I made almost all A's in pharmacy school, and but I wasn't any smarter in pharmacy school than I was when I was an undergraduate. I just knew how to manage my time better. So I think you manage your time by determining what your priorities are and then scheduling it. And so I'd have to work. I scheduled in between work and school. If I had an hour, I went to the library and studied. I didn't talk to classmates or spend as much time socializing. So I think that's very important. That's how I would suggest to people to manage their time, to schedule their priorities. And don't worry about the other stuff because it's not important.
Yeah, it's really amazing. طيب, how could you enjoy your life when you manage your life? Did you put a schedule for you to enjoy your life or to take some rest? How could you manage this issue?
Well, I was very involved in a church, so that took a lot of time. In fact, in one responsibility I had, it took like 30 hours a week. So that was, but I also managed to coach a youth baseball team. I coached a youth softball team. I did those things as often as I could, primarily because my children played in those sports and it was good to be their coach. Now being retired, I'm still involved in church activities, but I have more time. I think I'm just as busy, but the things I do are not. I picked up I'm trying to be a photographer. There's a question on here that what is the other career you would like to join other than pharmacy? And I think
yes, this is the next question. Yeah. Okay.
If I started at a younger age, I would have been a baseball coach. But the problem with being a baseball coach was that the income would have been less. So being a pharmacist was a great career because the income, while it doesn't make you rich, it's certainly adequate. And I enjoyed the benefits of that salary throughout my life. And but if I had to do it over again and realized how one works up through the ranks as a baseball coach, and then could coach high school and then could coach college, then the income, I didn't understand any of that at the time. And so that's something I never did. And I never thought I could do it. But as I look back and I see the careers of other coaches, I think I could have done it. So I would have enjoyed that because it would have been doing good for other people, influencing all these boys' lives or these girls' lives. And I think I would have enjoyed that. Now I'm trying to develop the patience to take photographic pictures. And I'm struggling with that a little bit because taking good pictures requires you to wait and wait and wait for everything to be just right, or for the animal to come into view, or for the sun to go down, or for the light to be perfect. And that's requiring me to learn some new skills, and I'm appreciating that. So I think that's what I would have done. I think a key is to stay busy and realize that you are building the wall of China. I mean, you have to have that attitude, that there are some projects I've done around this house and where I live, and I look back and I think, how did I do that? Well, I did it just a little bit at a time. And over a few months, it got done. And so that's how I've approached it. If you're going to write a scientific paper, you do it a little bit at a time. And over a few months, it gets done. But you just have to be persistent. And again, if it's a priority, schedule it. And it'll happen.
Thank you really for your words. The key word is prioritization. I think it will solve too many problems, specifically and especially now in the social media and the internet resources and too many distractions. I think the prioritization will help too much to manage the time.
Yeah, I think another thing is to have perspective. I don't necessarily like the political situation in America, but I don't have too much influence on that. My life goes on pretty much the same as it does, no matter who's president, no matter who's in charge of the place. I still have my life. And I think probably in Saudi Arabia, the people's life goes on pretty much the same. It doesn't depend that much on the leader. And I think, so for all of us, the key is to just work in our circle of influence, to be the best people that we can be in our circle of influence. And then that has an impact on a few other people. But those people have a circle of influence too. And if you influence them, and then they influence their circle, and then someone in that circle influences in another circle, pretty soon you will have influenced hundreds of people.
This is a great expression, a circle of influence for everyone. If he concentrate or she concentrate in a circle of influence, it will help him too much to concentrate mainly on the needed missions from him every day.
Yeah, you concentrate on your family, you concentrate on your friends, you concentrate on your community, your school, perhaps where your children are going to school, and you have a positive influence there, and that positive influence will affect other folks, and they'll affect other folks, and it's kind of like a pie. The farther out from the center of the pie, the wider the piece.
Yeah. So you speak with us about the time management and how we manage the time. So if I ask you about your time, do you have any tools help you to manage your time, like mobile applications or calendars or something like that?
Well,
how could you manage your time?
I probably should have more than I do. I keep lists. If I make a list of things and then go back and look at it every day and then mark off things I've done, then that helps.
This list is electronically or manual?
I just use notes on my computer. And so I will create a list. I'll create a list.
In a specific program or in the computer, in the normal notes of the computer?
Well, I have an Apple computer, so it has a little icon at the bottom and it's notes. And if I click
Notes,
on
I
it,
know.
the page,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I can start a note, and then I just create a list. If you use Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People approach, then you plan every week. And I used to do that, but I just got out of the habit. I think it's effective if you plan out your week and schedule the important things. Like if your kids have softball games or soccer games, or if they're singing or they have a performance, they have piano lessons, all the things your family does and things that you want to be at, schedule those. And then, of course, there'll be times when work is going to take precedent. But it will take precedent less because you won't forget the things that were important that you scheduled on. Let's say you schedule every Sunday for 20 minutes. You schedule all important things for the week. And will they all happen? Probably not. But they have a better chance of happening than if you hadn't scheduled.
I hear some speaks about the notes and the weekly plans, and some people told that you don't need to write everything in this list, because if you feel that it's too much or too many things you have to do, you will not achieve any of them. Do you agree with this or not?
Well, I'll start out with a list and I'll have 2 or 3, and by the time I'm done, I have 25 things. But I realize that I'm not going to do them all today. But if I don't write them down, I forget them. And so I eventually get them done. And usually within a relatively short period of time, like maybe 1 to 2 weeks. I find that that's better. And I don't feel overwhelmed because I realize I'm not going to do them all at once. And therefore, I think that's something I learned over the years. You can't do everything. And there's going to be a certain amount of stuff that you just aren't going to get done. But that's okay. You do your best.
Really that you can do everything? Because I think this is depressive for anyone who writes too many things and couldn't complete them. It becomes, for me, I become depressed in the end of the day.
You just do your best.
Yeah, do your best, yeah.
And do your best, and then if something, everything will get done. It just may not get done as fast as you want, but it will get done. I get almost everything I write down done, but it may take a week, it may take 2 weeks, and some things I can just get done the very day I write them. But I learned over the years that it doesn't cause me anxiety when everything doesn't get done, because I think I've learned also that other people don't get everything done either. In their minds, they have a lot of things that they would like to do, but they don't get them all done as quickly as they would like. I think we have to realize that we're all the same. And I used to think I was the only person that ever made a mistake. But then I discovered on a sabbatical once that that isn't the case. I did a sabbatical with the vice president for health sciences at Creighton University. And so we'd go around and we'd talk to the deans. And I would discover all the weaknesses of deans. And I always thought deans were these perfect people that knew everything in advance. Great leaders are just like us. They don't know everything in advance. They don't have some great inspirational thought on Monday that tells them what's going to happen on Tuesday. That doesn't happen. They have just as many doubts and fears and apprehensions as we do about the next day. And no one can predict the next day perfectly. And so we're all operating out of imperfect knowledge. And we do things in the hope that everything will work out. And most of the time it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And great leaders have no more insight than we do. I think that's something we have to realize that in America. I'll just maybe one last story. When America was fighting for its independence, George Washington's army was being beaten very badly by the British in Brooklyn, New York. And so George Washington had to get his troops off of the Brooklyn side of the East River and go over to Manhattan. But he didn't know how to do that. And the only way to do it was you had to cross the river. And at that time, there was no bridges, so they had to use boats. So he commandeered a whole bunch of little small boats, but he still didn't know how he was going to get across because the British could blow those boats out of the water with their big ships. Well, that night, there was a fog. And the fog prevented the British from seeing the Americans escaping across the East River to Manhattan. And that morning, the wind blew so hard that the British ships could not come up the East River. Now, George Washington didn't have weather services we have today. He had no idea those things were going to happen. And I think we sometimes make icons of these people. And yes, they were great people, there's no question. But they didn't know what was going to happen any more than we do in our lives. And as John Adams said once, he said, these people were operating on the edge of chaos. John Adams was another American great leader. And the edge of chaos, certainly George Washington at that time was operating on the edge of catastrophe, the edge of chaos. And he had no idea how it was going to come out. And I think we as leaders in our domains have to have the same understanding and not think that other people know any more than we do. I think we're all the same in this effort.
Yeah, really great. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for all these advices. Our last question, I was having a question about the pharmacist to be a great leader. If you have any cues for them or any cues for the pharmacist in general?
No, I think I'd just say have a good life, do the best you can, realize you can't get everything done, work one person at a time, one by one, I guess you'd say you do it. You're gonna affect one person at a time, and over a lifetime you'll affect a lot of people. And if you have the desire to influence those people to do good, then you'll have a great legacy. When your life ends, you'll be able to report that, yes, I did a lot of good for people. And I think that's the message I would leave everyone with.
Yeah, really thank you for your time and for, this is great and impressive advices you gave for us in this episode. In the last, the name, if you'd like to nominate this episode by other name or the same name of the previous one?
I think the same name will work. A life well spent.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for being with us. Do you want to add any advice or any quotes for the pharmacy or pharmacist?
No, I just say, if you wanted to add to the title, you could add lessons of experience. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, for being with us. I'm really happy to accept our invitation to be with us in this podcast. And I think this podcast will be valuable for all the pharmacists all over the world.
Thank you for asking me.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
I'll sign out now. Okay, thank you.
Okay. في النهاية بنشكر دكتور سميث على وجوده معانا النهاردة في فادك فارماسي بودكاست. بجد كانت من التوكس المتميزة جدا جدا أو من الحلقات الرائعة جدا اللي بتوقع إن هيكون ليها أثر كبير ومهم في حياة كل واحد بيسمعنا دلوقتي. أتمنى إن كل واحد يسمعها بالراحة ويتعلم منها how to manage your life, how to to lead your life, how to be not بس مش مجرد ان انا صيدلي بشتغل في المكان اللي انا فيه وخلاص. لا، جميل جدا ان انا لما اعمل مانجمنت لحياتي صح اعرف اعمل بالانس ما بين البيرسونال، ما بين البروفيشنال، ما بين الكارير، الموضوع مش صعب، موضوع عمله ناس كتير جدا وتميزوا. فآن الأوان إن كل واحد فعلا يقدر إن هو يحط لحياته بعض الكرايتيريا اللي تخليه يعرف يعمل مانجمنت لحياته صح، ويعرف يمانج الوقت اللي بيقضيه في حياته صح، بحيث إن هو كل فترة في حياته يقدر يستغلها ويقدر يوصل منها لأقصى درجة من النجاح والتميز. أنا بشكركم على متابعتكم لينا وعلى استماعكم لينا في حلقات فارماسي براكتس بودكاست. أتمنى من كل اللي بيسمعونا فعلا كل التميز والتفوق. ولو أي حد عنده أي ملاحظات، أي أفكار، أي مقترحات للبودكاست، ياريت يبعتها لنا على موقع فادك أو على info@fadik.net عشان نقدر نحن نستفيد منها ونطور من حلقاتنا. دكتور سميث ذكر كتير من المصادر، سواء هي في الغالب أغلبها كتب ما شاء الله بصراحة، يمكن أنا قريت أغلبها كتب رائعة جدا وهتفرق كتير جدا جدا، يمكن فرقت معايا أنا شخصيا بجد. I recommend all these books. فإن شاء الله هتتكتب في الديسكريبشن بتاع الحلقة كل التفاصيل بتاعة الكتب اللي هو قال عليها. الكتب ممكن تلاقوها في أمازون، ممكن تلاقوها في المكتبات الكبيرة. أتمنى فعلا أنتوا تقروها وتدونا الفيدباك. يعني أتمنى فعلا لو حد قرأ الكتب ديت ويوصل لنا الفيدباك بتاعته ومدى استفادته من الكتب دي، هتفرق كتير جدا معانا. بشكركم لاستماعكم لينا في حلقات فارماسي براكتس بودكاست. نلتقي بكم دايما على خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
FADIC, where lifelong pharmacist learning never stops.